Thank you for joining us this evening for the May 1st, 2024 Monte Sereno Site and Architectural Commission regular meeting. Before the meeting is called to order, I would like to point out a few house rules to assist the commission, staff, and members of the public to successfully participate in this meeting. For today's meeting, Zoom is being used to allow public participation with this Site and Architectural Commission regular meeting. For those using Zoom, to participate, there are two icons. Chat and raise hand. Please use chat only to report technical issues such as being unable to hear a commissioner speaking. Please use raise hand to be recognized by the chair and unable to speak to the commission. Only attendees using the Zoom application can use the raise hand option to comment. And participants calling in from a telephone will only be able to listen and cannot provide feedback. Lastly, when we're not all in the same room, all votes must be taken by roll call.
Thank you, Ms. Gonzalez Langarica. With that, I'd like to call to order the May 1st, 2024 meeting of the Monte Sereno Site and Architectural Commission. Ms. Perkins, would you please proceed with the roll call?
Yes, Commissioner Conley,
Here.
Commissioner Evans,
Here.
Commissioner Srivastava, Commissioner Tam,
Here.
Chair Zeidler.
Here. Okay, first we will start with oral communications. It's a chance for members of the public to comment on anything not on the agenda tonight. Does anyone have any oral comment, oral communications? Oh, okay, and then written communications. Ms. Perkins, have we received any comments in advance of the meeting for anything not on the agenda?
Not for items not on the agenda.
Okay. And then with that, let's move to reviewing the minutes from the April 3rd meeting. Did anyone have any questions on those? And are there any comments from the public on the last meeting minutes?
I move the adoption of the minutes.
Okay, would anyone like to second it? Seconded. Okay, let's proceed with the roll call.
Commissioner Conley,
Yes.
Commissioner Evans,
I was not present.
Would you like to say from your vote?
Abstaining, yeah.
Commissioner Srivastava, Commissioner Tam,
Abstain as well, I was not present at that meeting.
and Chair Zeidler.
Approved. Okay, motion carries. With that, we'll move on to the public hearing part of the meeting. And for the first item on the agenda, so I'll just say that I'm within 1,000 feet, or do you introduce it and then I say I'm within 1,000 feet?
Usually before this, the staff report.
Okay, so my home is within 1,000 feet of the subject property, so I'll need to recuse myself. Is there anyone else with comments?
I'm within 1,000 feet and I'm recusing myself.
Would you guys like to move from counter or the kitchen?
Oh, the kitchen.
All right, so then that will go to the and then I'll be back after. Other reading.
But I have to.
Oh, and I should have said Commissioner Evans will take it from here.
Okay, so it's, to the extent that do I now defer to you, Diana, is that, okay, let's go, Diana, let's address the application for constitution.
Thank you. This is an application for a site development permit, a fence design permit, and a tree removal permit at 18300 Constitution Avenue. The subject lot is located at the southeast corner of Constitution Avenue and Days Avenue. The existing house is approximately 3,080 square feet, and the project proposal includes an addition of approximately 2,677 square feet for a total of 5,757 square feet for the main house. Because of the size of the addition and the portion of the existing house that will remain, this project is considered to be a new house for terms of zoning standards and building code requirements. The project also includes a new detached 800 square foot pool cabana that requires a site development permit. The pool cabana is proposed to be located along the southern property line and near Days Avenue. The fence design permit portion of the application is for an 8-foot high fence on the side corner yard, which is along Days Avenue and along the rear property line. The proposed fence is wood with horizontal slats spaced, so that there are openings between each slat. As part of the conditions of approval recommended for this project, landscape screening will be required for the fence along Dave's Avenue, in front of the fence, so between the street and the fence. And lastly, the project includes a tree removal permit to remove 2 trees, which are subject to the site and architectural commission review. These are trees numbered 4 and 18 on the site plan on sheet T1. Tree number 4 is a coast live oak. Tree number 18 is a blue spruce. And both of these trees are located near proposed construction. That is a change from the staff report. The staff report had included tree number 5 as requiring approval from the Site and Architectural Commission to remove, but that tree is actually smaller than the threshold of needing a permit. So there's just 2 trees that are subject to the commission's review tonight. And staff recommends approval of the project as noted in the draft memorandum of decision with the attached conditions of approval. And that concludes the staff report, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, now open it up for the commissioners to ask any questions of the staff about the project.
I'm good. I went and saw the property today. I am in line with the city planner recommendation.
Don?
So I know this subject property and I feel that, you know, if the architectural plans have been vetted thoroughly and approved by licensed architecture and contractor, you know, assuming that they've met all of the all the codes, then I would be comfortable proceeding forward with an approval.
Okay, I have a couple of questions, Diana, if you can help me. In terms of understanding the property, as I look at the property, there are no story poles for the ADU that is intended for that. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And that's not a requirement. That's in line with the policies that we have.
Correct. The ADU is not subject to the commission's review. It is a state mandated ministerial approval. So it is shown on these plans for reference, but it's not subject to the review tonight.
Okay, and so that as I understand though, in terms of the setbacks that we're talking about on the property, we're gonna put a fence on at some point, and then how far is that fence off the street?
Off of the street, I'm not sure. The applicant might be able to answer that. It is on the property line.
On the property line, okay. And so then we're gonna put the fence on the property line, and then the setbacks are measured off the fence line, is that correct?
Off of the property line.
Okay, gotcha.
Yes.
So the one thing that, as I looked at it, I didn't understand was the story poles on the cabana reflect the top of the building of the cabana, but it doesn't reflect the wall that the decking will be, and the kind of the extension of that towards the street. So there's no pictures that really give me a sense of what does it look like, how much of a wall is, you know, there above below the home, because it's on a hillside. And so that's an area of just, as we talk about it and get a better understanding of it, I'll get a better sense of what that, you know, is there some way to kind of make that less obvious, a big giant wall in front of the, just off the street there. But certainly the poles are set back a bit, but that's the building instead.
Correct.
Okay. So for now, I think that's enough questions for me. If I could, open the public hearing up and offer 5 minutes to the applicant, to be able to speak.
Is the applicant interested in speaking that?
Our consultants are trying to log in, so they're going to just send them the Zoom link. Are you able to show the slides? Oh, yes. Okay, good evening, commissioners. I'm one of the owners of the property along with my husband. And I also wanted to say, thank you for your time today. As we see, today we are hearing the site development permit for the project at 18300 Constitution Avenue. Next slide, please. So one of the important things is to state the project goals. For us, this project is very important in that it's consistent with the neighborhood properties. It's also our goal to minimize the earthwork and grading. As a result, we understand what grading is and how much it will impact the environment. The other thing is also about the privacy for ourselves and our immediate neighbors. We also wanted to make sure, it had a nice curb appeal and finishes, and also, at the same time, no variances to the council meeting. Next slide, please. So these are project consultants who worked very hard on this project, and we have some of them on the phone line trying to get in as we speak. Next slide, please. So this project is consistent with R144. The property is more than an acre. The reason why I'm saying R120, I'll explain it to you in a bit. It's R144 zoning by right. It's also consistent with the design guidelines. It does not seek variance or any special exceptions from this commission or the council. And it's not going to be a zoning change. And it's completely recommended by staff, as you see from the report. Next slide, please. So by the numbers, we'll also try to minimize our grading on the property. Is an existing home, and the addition and cabana and the ADU, still are, even though they're called large scale developments, to warrant it a complete brand new home category by the staff. We also try to minimize the grading. So the cut is only 209 cubic yards, fill is 306. So the net fill is only 97 cubic yards. So that was one of our goals. And as I can show in the following slides, the average slope, the land is on a very slopey land. It's approximately 25% slope. So that is what, is making us this project to be considered in the R120 based on the slope density formula according to the Monte Sereno Municipal Code. So we are following the R120 for the main home and cabana and R144 for the ADU. Next slide, please. So the city zoning guidelines for this is a PDF, right? Not a, okay, yeah. Okay, I had some fancy animation, flying in, but anyways. So the single story, we were originally allowed, I guess, I don't remember what was but the numbers were smaller. But because of the size of the lot, much exceeds the R120 zoning, we do get some additional bonus square footage. So those are the new numbers we have. In addition to that, we are also needing to provide additional setbacks, 5 foot additional on each of these sides. So for the main home, we needed to provide additional 5 feet, then an R120 on the side and the corner and the rear yard. The same thing with the cabana as well. Instead of doing it just a 6 foot setback in the rear for the cabana, we are required to provide 11 feet, right? And as you know, ADU is only 4 feet setback. And the height of the building is 21 feet for both cabana and the main home. Next slide, please. So we did, wanted to show how much we conform to this, all the goals and zoning. So the front setback is only 35, but we took a lot more, 2x on that. In the side setback, we took, the 20. Side corner exceeding, and then the rear setback as well, much exceeding. So we are in compliance of all the setbacks and the zoning. Next slide, please. So, and then this is for the cabana. We are allowed 800 square feet on the cabana, and we took all these setbacks, which also again, much exceed the requirements. Next slide, please. For the planning submissions, we did a full set of architectural plans. We did a lot of details. We did engineering plans, landscape plans, to address the concerns of the screening, considering, Dave's and is the corner, it's a corner lot. So we were very, wary of that, and also, very careful providing the right amount of screening. And we also did the story police certification. Next slide, please. So as you see, this is the topo of our lot. You see that, there are only few areas, where the property can be fully developed. Where you see the lot 3, that's where, most of the main house is right now situated. And then, towards the left, you see a little bit more, flat area. And then down towards the intersection of Dave's and Constitution, you see some more, flat area. So those are the potential areas of development. Next slide, please.
Okay, you got about 10 seconds left.
Yes, sir. So these are the things, so these are the potential areas of development. This is where we decided to develop, based on the topo, follow the topo. Next slide, please.
So sorry, your time is up. 5 minutes has been up.
Okay, thank you. That's fine.
We may have a few questions.
Sorry,
Do any of
yeah.
the commissioners have questions for the applicant?
No, I was interested in the last few slides, but no current questions at the moment.
Okay.
Yeah.
So maybe if you can help me understand the wall is on the cabana is one area of concern for me. And so the setback that you have is to the building, but the setback to the wall, if I understand, is kind of like 26, 20, maybe it's almost 27 feet, is that correct?
27.
And how high is that wall?
There are sections, where it is 8 foot high, there's portions of it, but it's not entirely 8 foot around the cabana. So based on if you go to the topography, right, so you'll notice that there's a corner of the cabana, the pool deck,
Mhm.
that needs that 8 foot because of the slope in that particular section, the corner. But as you follow the pool deck wall, it's not completely 8 feet, it goes to 6 feet and then 5 feet, so if you look at the grading plan in the project plans, you'll notice that it kind of tapers to a more, the grading, real soil level.
Right, but if I recall the building, the pool is basically obviously gonna be flat.
Yeah.
The hill declines, in that area, is that correct? And so maybe the question I have is where the cabana is. And the story poles are today.
Yeah.
The wall there is how high at the cabana?
So the cabana is, at the highest point.
Yeah, right.
At the highest point, it's 18 something
Right,
in the middle of the cabana,
but that's off 18 feet off of what?
off of
18 feet off
of the natural slope, natural grade of that land.
Okay, and so from that, there's
From
a
there.
wall that goes out some distance
Correct,
towards the street.
towards the street, correct, that's the pool
And-
deck, right,
And so that wall is how high?
to the,
From the ground to the top of the wall that will be.
to the east, it's not as much, but to the west, it's 8 feet.
We can go to the.
There is a picture.
There's a civil plan in your PDF.
Okay,
There's a
grade-
slide, it actually gives the real numbers.
good, okay.
So it's worth, because it's a point of interest for you.
Yeah. it is.
It's worth opening that up.
It's in the staff report,
It's in the staff report.
I think
It-
Diana has.
Yeah, it will be a civil diagram.
Love to see it. I'd like to see these diagrams if you gave more time, Council member.
Yeah,
Happy to, yeah, she has the time to answer our questions. There's no restriction on that.
you want me to,
The
so
protected
it's your PDF that you publish.
It's page 16.
Page
That
16.
PDF that you have.
Pata hai color the- Civil owner, make it on. So that's where, so if you zoom into that,
Which area would you like me to zoom in?
so to the left, that's
Zoom
where.
into like right that portion.
Yeah, so let me just take, if I'm able to look it up and just, so my question became, so the story poles are here, which is fine, but this wall here is what I don't know, I can't tell how high that is.
So the top of the wall is 519, the bottom of the wall is 511 at this corner.
So that's 8 feet, you subtract those
This
two,
is 8
Right,
feet.
8 feet high.
that's 8 feet
And
high.
then, it kind of goes up, so the height decreases as we go to the, this grade is at 514. No, 516, sorry, so 516.
Right,
So 516 to 519 is only 3 feet, so it becomes 3 feet to 9 feet, so at this
Okay.
point, as it traverses those grades.
so we have a 9, so we have effectively what you're saying is it's an 8-foot wall here.
Yeah, 8 foot wall that becomes,
And then another, again, from here on out, 8 feet, and then this is another,
no, so this one is, top of the wall is 514, bottom of the wall is 10, so it's 4 feet.
4 feet.
that,
Okay.
so that one goes, and then, this one is 8 at the highest, but as it travels is each one, if it's 7 feet, 6 feet.
Sure, I
5
got you.
feet.
I got you.
Yeah.
That kind of gives you,
That's helpful, yeah.
you can visualize them.
Yep. So I guess my question is there a way to make that less obtrusive as a wall? I know we're doing that on the fence,
Yeah.
and I don't know how the wall, I don't know if it's gonna be cement, or if it's be stone.
So
or-
because of the pool situation, we were only allowed in a certain kind of materials,
Uh-huh.
that all that counts as impervious surface as well. So we have some guidelines in terms of the building practices, as you know, right?
Sure.
So the reason why we also proposed, it's going to be at a higher level, so the grade of that is 508. On the street level, it's going to be 503 at the Dave's.
Right.
So at this point, it's going to be 503. So we are proposing an 8-foot fence, so that the people who stroll or walk, right, they will not be able to see anything in our property. But at the same time, if people are walking around and all that, right, we also have a very robust landscape plan to screen everything. So we are suggesting that we put podocarpus, which goes all the way to 80 to 140 feet high for a period of time.
Right.
So so we have an aggressive screen landscape plan. If you can go to the landscape plan. Yeah, I think we'll get that issue 33.
No, she should.
Move. Thank you, right? We want to see the floor plan. Sure. And the rendering. Okay. Right.
So this is all podocarpus, so it goes all the way across the thing.
Right, so the only thing I would suggest is how you've got some trees, it looks like along the wall, or some sort of growth of some sort. And I'm concerned about this part. So I don't know what PG is, some sort of a plan. All I'm suggesting is there a way to continue this so that we don't have?
We can certainly do that, except that, since this is already covering that.
Those will cover already.
Yeah.
And you're trying to do 2 screens instead of 1 screen, but this 1 screen alone will fulfill, I think, what you're looking for.
And these are, as you plant, these are gonna be house all.
8, what is the?
The podocarpus, they're very skinny plants, they go all the way to, I think, I don't remember what my landscape architecture.
It's a 15 gallon
Right,
each.
but
No, the
but
height of the.
80 to 30, 130 feet over here of that. And we also, I think what is not reflected is also, we already have a mature landscaping, because of the benefit of being an older house.
It says 40 to 50 right here in the photocarpus.
Okay, so 40, so you're very tall trees.
They're very tall trees, and what you're asking is for a second screen. I don't think it is really needed. I mean, you could still do it. But the first one will cover will address your concern, I think.
That's all.
Also because it's a swimming pool, we are as concerned about privacy than anybody else, so I guess, yeah.
Okay,
Thank
all
you.
right.
Good.
Any other
Thank you.
questions?
So with that, I appreciate that. Are there any members of the public that would like to speak? Anybody has a opportunity for 3 minutes of speaking? Yeah. Please.
Please state your name.
Hi, I'm Alex. It's my 3rd time here, so I was just really interested to, see how plans go in general. So I went to the property and I'm really happy to have met the applicant. And what I wanted to say is that I think what I really like about the property is it's very hilly. And from outside of the street, I couldn't really see the poles of the main house. Once you get in, of course, you can see them, but I think it's really nice. And for Cabana, I totally understand, but I think what I just wanted to say is that from my perception and seeing the property, I think the 8-foot fence with the additional landscaping, I think would really help it blend in. So I just wanted to add that in as well and say just support. I think the design is really nice and the lot is challenging, of course, because there's a lot of hills. So I think the choice of putting the swimming pool and the cabana in that location is quite well. I think it can blend in really well into the setting as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Thanks.
Would somebody, any other public like to speak? Sure. Tony?
Tony James. I'm concerned about
You're attractive.
Okay. I'm concerned about the same wall that you're concerned about. I think there are a number of solutions that are very simple, and I think they could be handled by Diana. I don't think the project needs to come back to you unless you determine it does. I think the size of that pool deck area could be reduced and pulled back. If you look, there's a large amount of seating area on the other side, on the inboard side. So you could reduce the height of that wall by moving that in. I think you should set a limit that Diana can work with, like make it no taller than 4 or 5 feet instead of 8 feet sticking out of the ground. I think that would remove the need for an 8-foot fence, which I think is inappropriate along Dave's Avenue. And in any event, I think that if you do build a fence, the trees should be on the outside, not on the inside. You should be screening the fence from the street, not the fence from looking down at it from inside the property. If they want to put additional trees on the inside, fine. But I think looking up at an 8-foot fence with an 8-foot wall that you're trying to hide behind an 8-foot fence is inappropriate. I think Diana can be given conditions to work with the applicant so that it doesn't need to come back to you, but that's your call. I have no problem with the house. I have no problem with the ADU placement, the cabana placement. I think, for what it's worth in my remaining 1 minute, that the fire department has been ridiculous in requiring that fire truck turnaround there. There's another 8-foot wall that's sticking out of the ground, but luckily that is hidden from the street by the cabana, so people on Dave's Avenue won't see it. The neighbor behind will see it, but it's hidden, so I really don't care. Those are my comments. And it's the same wall that concerns me that you have a concern about.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, any other public? Please state your name.
Pam Killian, 18245 Constitution.
Mhm.
So we're just up the hill, kind of kitty corner.
Okay.
So the only question I had was about the fence and the height, because I'm not sure. Seems like you have a height restriction, typical height restriction for fences in Monte Sereno. It used to be 6 feet. I don't. Has that changed?
Yeah, Diana, can you give her
So,
the?
typical, well, fence heights, on rear yards and interior side yards can be up to 7 feet high with, 6 feet of solid fencing and 1 foot of lattice. There was, a a fence design permit process that was added to the municipal code about 4 years ago. That does allow for an 8-foot high fence for properties that meet certain conditions. And one of those conditions is properties along Dave's Avenue.
Oh. Okay, so it just seemed high. I'm a little bit concerned about visibility, leaving Constitution to turn left onto Dave's. And just want to make sure there's no obstruction, the visibility. And then I didn't get a clear idea of what the fence looks like. And is it an open, like rail and post, or is it sounded like it was solid.
No.
It's horizontal slats kind of a thing. You'll see a
More
lot.
modern.
They're like modern, more a little modern. Many houses have it
Yeah,
around the
no,
area.
yeah.
It'll be very similar.
Okay.
Yeah.
So my main concern is visibility. And it sounds like the fence is going on the property line and there is no setback.
Correct. The fence is proposed on the property line, which is set back from the curb. So
Okay,
it's not at the curb.
and how many feet is it set back, you know?
I'm looking at the plan, I'm gonna guess it's between 30 and 15 as you come
Oh,
closer
okay,
to
so that should be okay.
Constitution.
And I apologize, it's
Setback.
probably online. I just got the notice. I didn't look at the plans, but I'm excited about the project. I think it'll be great for the neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank
you.
Okay, any other public comments?
Yeah, I just have a few comments to say. Ted Lascola, and 345 Constitution Avenue. As Pamela has mentioned, and as we found out, we have an 8-foot fence. I'm just wondering, why it may not be able to, what most owners have, there's a chain link fence that's usually colored in black. And then they generally landscape around it so that it's very attractive. Number one, a little more expensive.
You guys are charged.
We'll let you go. Anyhow, maybe I'll just go without the microphone.
Yeah,
My voice is
no
loud
problem.
enough. You know, it's a lot of that. So that fence is the most important thing. Of course, and the setbacks are very important as far as going west on Constitution and again, either turn to the south or turn to the north. We do not have a stop sign on that corner. So, me as an owner, I roll through there, as long as there's no trees in my sight, I keep going. Okay. Which is fine. So if there's no obstruction, I'm very happy with that. I do like chain link rather than solid wood, even if it's a very expensive, wood. I think that you can landscape around it. I certainly did. And I have a lot of privacy on my lot. So that's some thought. I never did see a rendering of the floor plan, what it's gonna look like. I know it's a 1-story. I appreciate that. I think 1-stories are wonderful. I like the fact they'll have a swimming pool. The cabana is nice. I just think that hopefully it's appropriately set on that lot. It's a very tough lot to deal with because of the slopage. And I just hope that the council approves something that is good, not only for the owners of this property, we welcome them, but also for the neighborhood.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, that's good.
Okay, are there any other public comments? Yeah. Popular topic.
Hi, I'm not, it's not a comment, but we live on the property line, we're renters, but the owner of that, we're on the property line where the cabana is gonna be. And, the owner, Michael Preston, I believe, sent an email, so if that's available to read. Did you receive it? It's his, childhood home, and I think he was concerned that, there were some concerns that it was so close to the house we're living in, the cabana and the height. But again, we're renting, for us, it's a bummer, just because my husband's office is right there, we pay quite a bit in rent. And we pay for the view or the quiet and peace and quite a bit. But since I don't own the property, I don't really have any equity or anything to say, except it is a bummer, because my kids, I don't wanna move. But there's gonna be a lot of construction, my kids will be home for the summer, it's just, it's not a negative thing, it's just a concern.
We have a comment from,
I didn't see
I
that.
haven't seen that concern expressed in a public comment.
No, I did not receive any.
Okay, okay.
No, okay.
No, you don't.
Fine.
Okay, if there are no more, public comments.
Have actually someone with their hand raised.
Okay, great.
Online, so-
Okay, yeah, I'm sorry.
No worries, let me see if they can.
Yes, so thanks to everyone for giving me a chance to speak. So my name is Sumati and we live over at Dave's Avenue. So I did go over the plans and I also visited the property, and Jyoti and Vishwa, they outlined their whole plans for the property to me and my husband. So this is actually a very tricky lot to build with, and I like the fact that they put in much thought and consideration on the overall environmental impact of building on a sloped lot. And they also paid a lot of close attention to details on the privacy for both themselves and their neighbors. So the plans are very comprehensive and well presented, and they have a very robust screening plan. I did hear a lot of concerns on the 8-foot fence and on the cabana, but those meet the design guidelines and they're well within the required setbacks. So I don't see a problem there. I would like to express my solid support for this project. I believe this is going to increase the overall desirability of Dave's Avenue as a street. It's generally going to help with all of us on our properties and our equities. definitely a huge proponent for growth, especially when the plans are classy and well thought of and considerate to all those living in the neighborhood. So huge support for this property, and I request the commission to approve it. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Yes, sir.
I have one more comment. It's a very simple one. There's been construction in the past on Constitution Avenue. And part of the avenue has been re-asphalted and part has not. The part that we're working with from Dave's Avenue up to, I think, past Seabury, which has not been redone. A lot of construction is gonna be going on for over a year, maybe a year and a half. There's gonna be a lot of heavy equipment on Constitution Avenue and Dave's Avenue. I'm just wondering, I know when I did my property many years ago, I had to get out there with big hoses and wash that street because of the materials that's left by heavy truck loads and by construction. So I do recommend that we keep an eye on that street, both streets, because of the type of materials that's gonna come, and the type of equipment that's gonna bring that materials in is gonna do a lot of damage to that street and make a mess. So please keep that in mind. I think it's very important. I hope you add that summary to the development. We're not opposed to the development. We just wanna make sure that it's done correctly.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Do you have a bond?
Okay,
Maybe a bond would be advisable.
okay. So if there are no more comments, let's go ahead and have the commissioners, open to discussion for us to share any thoughts you have about the project, concerns, support.
I mean, on second thoughts, I do feel that the trees that are being planted, if they are like, planted on the outside of the wall, they will make the wall look less jarring to, people who are walking on days or driving on days. But again, I guess my sentiment is that if it's within the code, I don't know if we can enforce that. I'm open to discussion.
So if I could just add, that the applicant's plans include the landscape on the back of the fence along Dave's Avenue. An additional condition of approval that is included in the, for the commission's consideration tonight is that, landscaping also be provided in front of the fence, which is a standard requirement with a fence design permit. So there would be landscaping in front of the fence as well as behind.
Okay, and the landscaping in front of the fence is how high?
The requirement is that it would, be the height of the fence
Okay.
or higher.
All right, anything?
That was one point I was going to make it. I think I prefer to have the landscaping on, in front of the fence so that it does, hide most of the fence. The gentleman, the neighbor brought up a great point. I think we should be mindful of making sure the street and the debris gets cleared, on a regular basis, since there are other residences living in the area and just loose rock and gravel, could be an issue. So we be mindful of that.
So,
Can we make a closing statement? Can we address these questions?
Actually, if we don't have a question for you at this point, it's
we-
just a discussion between us.
we'd like to. Okay,
Okay, anything else? Okay, I think, I appreciate everybody's input. I think it's a beautiful home that's, really very, nicely planned. I'm familiar with the property and just live not far down the street from it, so I'll be driving past it quite a lot, and enjoy seeing it. As I mentioned, I don't have anything to say about the ADU, but shielding there would be, I think if the trees are there to help that, then I don't even have an issue with that. I think that, as we've talked about, the landscaping on the street side to cover the fence is, I think, an important point that we have. in support of that. And with those, elements, I'm happy to really delegate back to Diana to work with them to solve those kinds of issues that are fairly minor in nature, I think.
So we need a motion of this. Yeah, and I agreed with the landscaping, just making sure that, it grows upward instead of outward, so it does not obstruct any views as.
Right. In terms of the stop sign on the street, that doesn't seem like it's very safe. Maybe the council takes that up as opposed to us.
The lack of a stop sign?
Well, yeah, it seems to me like, I guess I've driven past that thing, I don't know, 1,000 times and never thought about a car rolling in front of me.
Yeah, and it's pretty steep coming down
Yeah, it
the
is.
Constitution, yeah.
But it's not our bailiwick, so I'm not gonna try and go down that road. So with that, if there's a motion there.
Yeah, I do, one clarification I wanted to do. So we did look at the conditions of approval of Diana, with additional screening needed in terms of the 8-foot fence. I did talk to my landscape architect right before the meeting, asked him, what he would recommend. Then he suggested that instead of doing 2 layers of landscape screening, because it's on the west side, the 8-foot fence would actually block the growth of the plants outside. So he asked us to see if it's okay to move the fence a little bit inside from the property line and instead plant the trees outside. So where we are suggesting inside the fence, instead put them outside and move the fence inside. And if that's okay with, I think that would be much more, better for the health of the plants and the screening as well, according to him. Instead of having 2 rows of screening, one on either side of the fence, he asked us to move the fence inside the property. And if that's okay, I would like to propose that instead.
I think that's better.
That sounds better.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you could add that statement to the report.
It is up to the commission if you want to
Okay.
accept that or if you want
I'm
to,
happy,
that is part of
yeah,
your.
I'm happy to accept that. There's no need in my view to have both.
Yeah.
So I think as long as the fence is shielded, and you achieve the height, that you need to, I don't see a reason to have both.
Yeah, depending on the type of the tree, we'll work with the landscape architect on how many feet it will move in. Let's say 4 feet, 5 feet, whatever, and then you plant those trees and they'll be very tall. You can get away with 1 row instead of 2 rows.
I'm comfortable with that.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I think, is, if I understand that, we're going to support, moving the fence in and having the landscape shielding on the outside of the fence. And with that, I think we're supportive of the program, ensuring that they also have the street.
Do we have a motion and do we have a second?
I second the motion.
Okay.
That we approve it.
Thank you.
Okay. And all in favor? All right, okay, there we go.
Thank you. Thank you.
You may have things on now. I don't. That's with my phone. I don't know. Very sensitive. It is. I think we need to change it up. I think it was the same. Yeah, I just think it was the angle. Yeah, I think that's good. Yeah.
And you know what, I don't think it's back this page, so it's not working, I think. So definitely speak up if you guys do come up to speak. Yeah.
Or we kept it back there so long.
So we do need to,
There's lots of interest.
so I think it's better than it.
No, it's all.
Yeah, I know, it's better than it being that out here. It's okay, thank you. Thank you. It was good discussion. She got enjoy your birthday. Yeah. You got the magic.
I'm also Chinese.
All right, everyone's back. Let's resume. Ms. Perkins, would you like to introduce item number 3 on the agenda?
Yes, thank you. This is an application for a new house at 17795 Vineland Avenue. The subject lot was created in December 2023 when an SB9 urban lot split was approved and recorded to split the lot at the northwest corner of Vineland Avenue and Robin Lane in Pichu lots. The existing house at the corner of Robin and Lane is now on a separate lot and is not part of this application. So this application is for a new two-story house on the property that fronts along Vineland Avenue. The proposed house is approximately 4,483 square feet with an additional approximately 1,824 square foot basement. But the basement area is not included in the maximum floor area allowed for the property. The application also includes a tree removal permit to remove 3 trees that are subject to the commission's review. The proposed landscape plan does include the planting of 16 new 24-inch box size trees to be used as replacements for the 3 trees proposed for removal. Staff recommends approval of the project as noted in the draft memorandum of decision and with the attached conditions of approval. And that concludes the staff report. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Commissioners, does anyone have questions for Ms. Perkins?
So again, this is it has an ADU, we're not involved in the ADU process. My only question is, it's unclear to me that is the ADU actually on the new lot or is it? So it's not, I mean, it's.
It is on the same lot as the house that's proposed.
Okay, gotcha.
I have a question about understanding how the property will be required to manage its own water. The neighbors have mentioned that property is a low place. It tends to gather runoff from properties around it and such. When you're looking at the property having to manage its own water, how do you calculate that? Because I was thinking, you know, a property high on the hill might have less water to manage than this property.
So as part of the building permit review process for any new house, the city does require civil engineering plans for lot drainage and grading, depending on the scope of the grading for the project. And I don't know the details of what is required as part of those civil engineering calculations. But it is an issue that is, like I said, reviewed as part of the building permit application. And I think the applicant can probably speak to the details on this site.
Okay.
Along the same lines, is that process include like a hydrological study of the property and core samples as an example to understand if where the water table is relative to that? Because I know Monte Sereno has lots of underground water problems. We have that issue.
So there is also a geotechnical report that is required as part of any building permit submittal. Much of that information is used for the structural design of the house, but if there is any unusually high water table, that would be called out in that report as part of, and would be part of the civil plans also.
Right, because we're effectively, by putting the basement in, you're going another, call it 10 feet down from the ground level, right? Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
I kind of envision, you know, when you dig a hole at the beach, if you're close to where the waves are rolling in, the water starts seeping up, right? Versus higher up.
Right.
Okay, well, the next step, if we don't have any other questions right now, is to open up if the applicant would like to speak for the project or the applicant's representative, and you'll have 5 minutes to speak. Hello, Mr. Dean.
Hello. Do you have a slide or two? I guess this isn't working, so at least it's not crackling at you.
I'll share my timer. I share this, but I will have it up. I'm ready.
You can take the verbiage off the bottom and just get the picture a little bigger, maybe. Thank you. All right, so this was the lot split of the property. Parcel 1 and parcel 2 were originally part of the same property, and we are developing parcel 2. So this was an SB9 lot split, done earlier this year. So the resulting parcel 2 is a little under half an acre, and we are asking for no exceptions on this particular design. The next one. Okay, so you have a conceptual site plan here. Shows at the very bottom would be Vineland. There is a driveway, circular driveway coming in, the main house. There's a rear courtyard behind it. And then a game court in the backyard, and to the top right is an ADU. So that is the location of the ADU as proposed on this site plan. We're actually going to move it fractionally further away from tree 8 because we want to preserve tree 8 and it's too close to tree 8, but that's part of the ADU process. So we will move it further away. You can see that we have, if you can go back lower down, like zoom out a little. There is a storm drain inlet at Vineland because we're at the low point on Vineland, and periodically that blocks with leaves and water flows across the property. So we have created a bioswale, which you can see to the right of the house, which will be an overland release such that if that drainage inlet is blocked and is not cleaned out, then that is where the water will flow. We've also arranged, if you look at the details of the plan, that the game court will be permeable. So we're doing a permeable asphalt, so water goes through it, and underneath that, there's a water chamber to allow water to percolate into the ground. So that entire rear portion of the property is used for percolation into the ground. There is also, we discovered a 75-year-old storm drain running under the property, which we are going to relocate a little bit. It goes under the very corner of the garage and through the corner of the, light well shown on the right-hand side of the property. And we're going to move it so it is more underneath the storm drain. The drainage swale. It has a discontinuity in it. We put a locator down it and it blocked. So we have to fix a problem in that drainage pipe anyway. It does not have an easement. So we're just going to move it to the appropriate point. That will be shown in the development plans when we submit those. The next one. So the design of the house is articulated on all sides. It's fairly appropriate for the neighborhood. You can see at the back that we have a sunken courtyard to allow light and egress from the basement. And the basement is actually 6 feet below grade, not 10. We've already done our geotechnical report and there was no water found. So we are okay to do this. They did find that the first 5 feet were very bad soil, which had been deposited over the years from drainage. So excavating that out for the basement was necessary. And if we weren't doing that, we would have to do 20-foot piers in order to get through that layer. But we've solved 2 problems with one, in that we are able to excavate, get rid of the bad dirt, and solve the problem. I'll go to one more slide. At the top right, you can see where we have moved the actual ADU forward to give a 10-foot radius away from that tree. And we will be coming back to you in about a month, I would imagine, with a fence permit request, which we did not put in this application because I didn't realize we needed one. But I have been informed we do, and I'll present that information at a subsequent hearing. But you can see that we've moved the ADU away from the tree.
Oh, 5 minutes, I guess.
Yes.
You covered a lot in those 5 minutes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'll answer questions about drainage and anything else that you want.
So when was the soil evaluated to see if there was moisture underground? What time of year?
Do you have that report on file? I mean, we gave it to you. I don't know.
As
if you
part
have
of
it.
the subdivision.
Yeah,
So that application.
so that, it would have been, middle of the year last year.
Like
About
summer?
this time a year ago. So, also you have to realize that that storm drain goes 2 properties beyond this property, and then there's a big drop off, which goes down about 30 feet and into, so there is plenty of space for that water to dissipate. So it's not as though it's trapped in that area. There's a large area for water to go. And I've done designs up in Palo Alto where we have to build boats when you do a basement. Basically, they have a water table that's up around 2 feet below grade, and you have to solve the problem. So here, we're not looking to have to do that, but it's, it's not gonna be a problem here.
So the engineers thought the water table was not high, it was just surface runoff from the street, or? Because.
No, I mean, there is 5 feet of not very good dirt on the top of the property. So we have to excavate that out in order to build, or we have to drill piers through it.
What do you mean by not very good dirt?
Over millennia, that area was probably part of a creek that ran through, came down Cave-in Lane, went straight across the property and over to the bay. And as it's been built up, that dirt, that poor quality dirt has remained. So the top 5 feet needs to be either excavated or drilled through with piers. So if you look at the soils report, which I have, I know that we have to take it out and we're building a basement to solve.
So it's basically loose, not wet.
It's loose. Yes, it's not wet. No, there's no inherent moisture in it. Sorry, I thought you were asking the quality of the soil, not the moisture content. Yeah.
Any of you have questions, other questions for Mr. Dean?
Yeah, I just, the above ground, drainage, swell that I think you mentioned. Is it anticipated that's just gonna dump into your neighbor's yard?
It does at the moment. They have a swale on their property that continues
The above ground, or not?
above ground and below ground.
So,
They have a drainage inlet, and they also have a rock swale going across their property. If you walked out along the line of the fence and looked to the right, you'll have seen a whole load of rocks along there to the right. And that's where all of that water flows when it overflows from Vineland. And eventually it goes down the edge to the creek over the other side when the storm drain blocks. If we keep the storm drain clear, then you have a better chance, but I don't want to risk allowing a flood when my clients are out of town and no one's on the property and it blocks and floods the basement. So the drainage swale is a neat way of providing a percolation area, because it'll be a bioswale across the property, and also a storm release for Vineland. If Monte Sereno wants to take ownership of that storm drain, I'm very welcome to donate it. It was put in by a group of 3 neighbors 75 years ago, one of whom still remembers putting it in. And he lives next door and brought it to our attention, and we then located it, and now we know how to solve the problem.
Gotcha. On a slightly different topic on the same property though, how is it, I mean, there's a beautiful 100-year-old or more oak behind this home. And a good part of that oak is on the property line, over the property line.
Part of it hangs over, yes.
Yeah, and you're going to build a sport court, which if you were to do that underneath that, you're gonna have clearance of not much.
We're gonna lift the lower limb a little bit. If you look at it, the arborist has said that it's a little bit unbalanced. So there is a limb that hangs very low over my client's property. We can lift the bottom 2 branches that come off that, and that'll be done under an arborist supervision. And if you want to condition that, for the arborist to be there and supervise that, I am perfectly happy doing that, because I think it should be done very carefully.
Yeah, I think that's important. It's a beautiful tree.
It's a wonderful tree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The neighbor had mentioned in a letter today that that he wasn't a big fan of anybody screwing with that tree. Have you talked with Mike on that?
I saw that letter come in at the last minute. I think if we do it carefully, first of all, we're allowed to do it,
Yes.
all right? But I am a lover of trees, especially oak trees. So I will make sure that the arborist is supervising any limb removal and any lightening of that tree. It hasn't really been maintained. It's lived incredibly well and it's very healthy. I don't think it needs a lot of heavy lightening, but I think a little bit on our side would be good for it. But under the supervision of an arborist.
When you do the pruning, you'll have to plan probably when you get the arborist involved, because I know that with oaks, you want to prune them, any big cuts in the winter.
Agreed.
So just keep it on your calendar to make sure they do
Yeah,
it.
we'll wait until the winter comes. There's plenty we can be doing if you approve this project. We've got a basement to dig and some concrete work to do before we get back
Sounds
into the
like it.
backyard. But thank you.
Anything else for Mr. King?
Okay, a question about the basement, I'm pretty familiar with most of the homes in the neighborhood. I don't know of any other homes with basements, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's not very usual. What came about the idea of adding a basement to this home? I just don't see them a lot in the community. That's just my personal observation and knowledge of it.
Okay, so I beg to differ. I would say just about every home that I build now has a basement or that I design rather, because Monte Sereno, Los Gatos, Saratoga, all over. I've done about 400 homes in over the last 35 years, and I would say 50% of them have basements. And I think the land is so valuable, and people don't want to built too tall. They want to fit in with the neighborhood. My client also has a desire to put a gym in, a media room, and things like that. And if you look at the plans, you'll see that what we put in the basement are rooms that you really don't need windows in. And it is very appropriate and yeah.
It has to be more expensive to excavate a basement than build on ground level, right? So you'd probably do it with properties that are space constrained because they're a lot split or a smaller lot.
A lot of basements and daylight basements I build on hillside lots. So, for example, the house that was just up before us, if they were not, if they were building a brand new house, they would probably excavate into the hill and do a daylight basement because it's very appropriate to do that now. Yeah, I mean, basements are
That
appropriate.
sufficiently answers the question, right? Okay, right. Okay, maybe if we don't have more questions, then maybe we'll open it up to the public to speak on the project.
Sure.
Oh, I'm
I have a
sorry.
quick
Go ahead.
question. So with the proposed tennis court or whatever that court is and the house, the pervious land requirements are met, right? Diana?
Yeah, it is because we are using permeable asphalt, which is uncommon. It's a little more expensive. If you look at the detailed drawing on one of the pages that I did there, it shows that you actually create a chamber underneath the asphalt surface. Water is allowed to get through the asphalt because what you use is an asphalt that is a bigger granular, it's not a tight asphalt. So it is more porous, it lets the water through, and then the water then can percolate over time into the ground. So the way Monte Sereno calculates that is a 50% reduction on the square footage of the area. We've also used the same approach on the driveway, which will either be porous, pervious asphalt or pervious pavers. So, yes, we are under the limit, but yes, Diana made us rigorously calculate all of the square footages and tabulate them to make sure that we were.
So because you're using this pervious material, even the tennis court gives you, counts as 50% permeable, land,
Yes,
right?
yes,
Yeah, because it is looking really busy. and
it
it's
is,
really
but
concentrated.
we did that on purpose because if we put a swimming pool there, it would not be permeable.
That is good.
And so we would have had a smaller swimming pool, which we could have done. But from the neighbors' input, knowing that there is a general area, there's a general need to percolate water into the ground in this area. We wanted the whole of the back half of the property to be able to percolate water.
Because that raises my next question, that, I think one of the neighbors has raised a concern saying they would like a drainage study to be done to make sure that this is overall not having negative impact. Because what used to go into the ground because of this new construction, all the impermeability is going to be additional drainage, right, on that side. So I just wanted to check, what are
Well, we have to do that as part of our submission to the city. And yes, we have to percolate and we have to calculate. We have to show that there is no net increase in outflow from the property from the prior condition and the post condition, except the drainage swale. If there is an inflow because there's a flood at Vineland, if that drainage grate gets blocked, then we don't have to treat that, we just have to allow it to pass. So we don't have to, water that's coming onto the property from somewhere else, we don't have to handle, but we have to manage all of the increase in impermeable coverage by ensuring that we can percolate enough water into the ground on the property and not impact the neighbor downstream.
Mr. Jeans, if the swale is in a different spot than the culvert is currently, how do you direct that? How do you get that water to go where you want it to, into the bioswale?
Well, if you see where it starts directly at the storm drain input on Vineland. If you looked at the site plan, there is
So you're
a,
feeling like it's all the water that comes from off the property onto the property that runs through that culvert. It doesn't sort of gather.
well,
From
anything,
the subject.
anything that we don't allow to percolate in other areas would go into there, but it percolates itself. So bioswale will allow percolation. But the inlet, I thought you were asking on Vineland, is opposite the start of the drainage swale. So we're going to direct the overflow portion at Vineland into the bioswale such that if it gets blocked, that's where the water goes. And then it goes through the swale, which will be about 2 feet deep and about 4 or 5 feet across.
But you're also taking water in from the home that you split the lot with, right? Because it's 6 feet higher.
There is
There water.
already natural drainage, if you can see at the very rear of the site plan at the top, that exists already, and we will leave that.
Right, I'm suggesting that
If they
some
were
of
to
the water you're
do
gonna take is gonna come off of the prior house.
a little bit, but if a future buyer were to buy Alex and Johnny's house after they move into this one, because they're living in the house next door. If a future buyer were to buy that and were to demolish and rebuild, then they would have the constraints of making sure that everything is retained on that property. So every property has to be self-sufficient in terms of not allowing excess runoff.
But that seems like it's in conflict with, I mean, you split the lot, and the lot that was absorbing all of the runoff from the prior home. Now you're saying that prior home has to absorb its own water.
Well, there is a large area to the right of the house that you don't see on this property.
Or the pool is from the other property.
Yeah, and there's a large area there that, you know, can absorb water. So I don't believe that this property on the right is anywhere close to its limit in terms of coverage.
Is there ever standing water in the winter on the property where, you know, where the horses graze and that big open area in the middle?
When it is heavily raining, it takes a little while for that to percolate. And some of it percolates and some of it runs onto the property behind. Yeah, so that's why we've done what we've done and allowed for this to be a permeable game pool.
It's just a little, I mean, I'm not a soil engineer or water engineer. I just, when you look at the property now, it's mostly dirt and the water, there's still standing water sometimes, so. It's just.
Only a day after heavy
big
rain.
Storms, by putting all these structures will decrease the permeability, not increase it.
It will fall within the guidelines that we have to abide by. And the civil engineer has to ensure that we develop the bioswale, the percolating asphalt in sufficiently careful way to allow it to percolate on the property. We also have a very good perimeter.
Will any of those measures make it percolate more than just the current bare dirt would?
Will any of the, sorry, question again?
Will any of the structures that will be added in developing the property make the water be absorbed more readily than it would with just the bare dirt that exists now?
No. But we're demolishing the barn, so that's eliminating that barn. Is an impermeable area totally, that goes. So when you replace it with a sport court, for example, of a little bit bigger size, you've got a balance. So the barn trades off for the game court.
How
The
many square
bias-
feet is the barn, do you know? And, or
Do you
even an
know that?
approximation?
Do you know the size of that? I would say probably looking at it, 1,500, 1,700, 1,800 feet.
I don't think it's that big, it's that big.
Well, you're seeing it as a dotted line and it's an outline on this plan. But, so you're removing that, which is totally impervious. And you are putting in, we've also arranged for the light well areas to be permeable. So we haven't put a concrete floor on the light wells. So when water falls in those, it goes through to the ground. So we're being very careful
Yeah, the
about
barn-
what we do.
The barn looks like it's 800, roughly 800 square feet.
800?
Not just by looking at the scale of the landscape plan.
Back when's all the.
I don't, I mean, I'm just.
Well, okay, so 1,000.
Couldn't argue.
Do the plans call for any sump pumps?
We would put a sump pump for the retaining wall for the basement. So it would be a sump pump for that. And we don't know at the moment whether we need a sewer ejector pump for the lower level, because I don't know how deep the sewer is in Vineland. We may need one for that, but that would just eject, that would be sewage. That would just eject to the main level and then it'll gravity feed to the street.
And then will you have a backup generator? Or a neighbor on my street had a sump pump in his, under his house. It wasn't a basement. But then in the big storms, the power went out and then the sump pump wasn't working. So they had
Yes,
to put
we're-
in a generator to fuel the.
Okay, so we're putting in, yeah, that's a good question. We're putting rooftop solar. I don't know if you saw, but we have a flat area on top of the roof because we do not want the drivers, people going down, up and down Dave's Avenue to look at solar on the front of the house. So we have a flat area where we're putting solar and then we're putting batteries, and the combination of solar and batteries will be the equivalent of a generator. So we can drive any sump pumps through the batteries
Okay.
if we have a power failure. So yeah, we're in early stages of the detailed design, but we have, we think, solved the problems that we need to solve.
Even in San Francisco, that's been built forever, when there are high rains, the creeks come back and run down the roads that,
Absolutely.
that city's been. built out
Absolutely, and
for
that's why we're
several
trying,
hundred years.
you don't normally see properties that are trying to solve this problem, but we're trying to solve this problem because I don't want to give it to my clients.
Right.
When I've finished here, I would
Want to
like
drive
them to be
basement.
able to live there without
Right.
coming back.
Diana, do we have any ability to require kind of an extra level of review regarding the drainage issue?
It's already in the conditions that the soils report can be reviewed at the discretion of the city engineer by a consultant to determine whether or not it's appropriate, but you do have that, but
Correct, there is,
Yeah,
there is a standard condition of approval, that is included in the draft memorandum of decision that would require the stormwater, to be designed in accordance with the requirements for, stormwater regulations. We have had, as Mr. Jeans mentioned, a case recently where the city engineer at that time did feel that the project needed to be reviewed by a hydraulic engineer. And so we do have the ability to request that at the time of the building permit plans. The city engineer does have that.
But in this instance, we,
And could we, request that the city engineer, do we have any ability to influence the city engineer in making that request?
I would need to confirm with the city attorney. My initial thought is I would doubt it because it is sort of a technical engineering requirement. You could certainly add, or revise the existing condition number 14 or add an additional condition to further emphasize the concern.
Okay, thank you. Oh, one minor question just on the plans. Are there gutters and downspouts?
not yet, but there will be.
Okay, I just looked at
No,
the plans and I
look,
didn't see downspouts.
No, we size the downspouts when we do the calculations, and we haven't got to that point yet, so I don't know exactly where they'll be. But yes, there will be downspouts. Thank you.
And that is, part of what is taken into consideration with the drainage plans is the locations of the downspouts.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Jeans. We may well have you up again, but I think now we'll move on to
I
the
look
public,
forward to
please.
Thank you.
And would anyone from the public like to speak? And please introduce yourself as you, and you might have to be a little louder, because I guess the
Okay.
microphone's not working.
Hi.
Thank you, and you'll
Hi.
have 3 minutes.
Sure. I'm Jyoti Reddy. I'm one of the participants. I mean, I've been looking at the plans, considering it was on the same agenda list today. So one thing I do understand is that this is an SB9 project, so more, housing, which is good. The question I have for the staff and also for the Site and Architecture Commission is, the parcel 2, where this project is being proposed, is only 18,255 square feet. That means it has to be R18 according to the guidelines. And I do not understand how it's being considered as an R120 project. So that's my first concern and question to the committee itself. And I see that, there's no variance being asked or, any request to the council to upzone this particular parcel. So it should follow the R18 guidelines. Instead, it seems to follow R18, R120 guidelines. So that's my first question to the committee. The second one is about, the mass of the building. This is at the corner of both Vineland and Robin Avenue. It's a very prominent street. And I see that, both the first floor and the second floor are almost 1:1 ratio. So that kind of doesn't suit, the neighborhood if I drive around. So that's my second
Can
concern.
you repeat that last bit?
The ratio between the first
ratio.
floor, yes,
Thank you.
it's very mass and bulky. So it kind of like, doesn't fit the neighborhood, so there is no, according to the design guidelines, so that city has, and it doesn't follow those guidelines of, doing more like, more on the first floor than going a little bit on the second. The third concern I have is the roundabout driveway. In many of the cities in the Bay Area, they don't allow 2 driveways for the same property. So this particular seem to have like, turnaround and a driveway, roundabout driveway. That's going to require 2 driveways to this, to the property, which is kind of very, unusual for this lot of this size of R18. So those 3 are my concerns about this property development. And I do, request that the commission look at it, all these concerns. And in my experience with other SB9 projects around the Bay Area, all the projects that are downsized after the lot split, they get the new zoning based on the size of the lot. So in this particular case, the parcel 18,000, parcel 2, 18,255 clearly falls below the half acre guideline. So it should follow the R18 guideline. So I kind of, tried to see if it was a variance or whatever, but I didn't find anything in the staff report. So please do address.
Could you please speak to the zoning?
Correct. What the municipal code requires is that the lot follow the zoning regulations of the zoning district that the lot size most closely matches. So even though it does not meet the full half acre size of the R120 zoning district, the 18,000 square foot lot size is much closer to the R120 zoning standard of 21,000 square feet compared with the R18 of 8,000 square feet. So that's why it's under the R120 regulations.
Which is very different from the other cities in the Bay Area. So I've done some, SB9 projects with other friends, I've known those projects. But all of them look at the lower size and not the higher thing, That's the difference.
That's
Okay, thank you.
interesting.
Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah. And then on the question of the circular driveway, people tend to not do those because it takes up so much square footage, right?
Actually, a couple of them on the street, that's pretty regular, right?
It's not unusual, the city does not have, a limit on the number of driveways, that are allowed based on a frontage of a property. It is, that there is no limit in Monte Sereno for that. The circular driveways are not uncommon. There are others on the street, and there are some, I guess, schools of thought that they are safer in that you're not backing out onto a fairly busy street.
Thank you for your comments. And we'll turn to discussion of the appearance probably toward the end. That's when it we usually do. Is there anyone else from the public that would like to speak? Please come forward and introduce yourself.
Hello, committee members. I'm Alex. I'm the owner, with Johnny, we're the owner of the 17795 Vineland Avenue. So first of all, I just wanna express my great gratitude for your time and review the project. Just want to share some of my personal thoughts. I think one of you mentioned the reasoning of the basement and the way that we design it. We put the environment and we want to fit in the city. We love the city, Monte Sereno. We want this to be our home. So we design it to be a way that we want it to fit our lifestyle. So we're the big family. We have 2 kids, and we want the home to be a multi-generation family for my parents and my in-laws. So it will be a big family. So we would need a lot of space, and we wanted to fit our lifestyle. The house is designed to be very functional. We're a very active person, so we want the gym, we want the sport court, we want the space, living space. But if you look at the design, everything is very functional. And meanwhile, the basement design is our deepest concern at the first as well. So we put a lot of thought there. We have a lot of discussion with our architect, Tony, he's very experienced. So I really appreciate, it is to our best interest to considering the drainage, the basement, everything. So we want this to be our perfect home. We don't want it to be a disaster project because we're going to live there. All our family, our parents will be living there. So just, I want to just express my generosity that this is really to our best interest to make it successful. So I really appreciate all of your input, our neighbors' input, so that we can review this carefully and make it right. So if anything we could do, we're trying to make it fit in the neighbor and to make this a functional and successful project for our home. So that's all. Thank you for your consideration and thank you for your input.
Thank you for your comments. Does anyone have any questions for her? Thank you. Anyone else that would like to speak? Okay. No hands raised on.
Do I get to rebut?
No.
Yeah.
Well,
go into discussion. Yeah, we'll discuss, and then if we have questions come up, then we'll bring you back up, okay?
okay.
Okay. So I'll close it to public comment and bring it back to the committee to discuss. Who would like to go first? Anyone want to lead?
So I'll start off so again, I think from my perspective, the oak tree preservation is an important part of the project. Making sure that gets done. I think the drainage has obviously got us all, including the neighborhood, worked up. And I just think nobody wants, a swamp. And so as long as we can get the engineering done to support that, I think, I'm still a little kind of confused on the drainage coming from the side house because but I think that's a lot split question, not a site architecture question. So with that, those are my thoughts, I guess.
Okay, thank you. Oh, and do you have any comments or thoughts on the appearance of the house?
Well, it's big. The house next to it is also quite large. But it's covered by fencing that you really can't see much of the house because the firewall fences they have there. But they certainly don't have the room to set back further, you know, or maybe they do, I don't know. But that, you know, it's a big house close to the street. So I would just say I share some of the concern about the size of it. It uses up a lot pretty good.
Thank you.
Yep.
Would like to go.
I mean, I think one of the neighbors did raise this concern that could the setback be increased? It's a very, big construction and looks like it's really there, very close to the road. So yeah, from an appearance perspective, it may be something that's not very aligned with the neighborhood. As we were there, we saw another house that is next to it. It has a much deeper setback, and it is again a big house, but because of the setback, it's not jarring for somebody who's walking on the street. Yeah, I do have.
Ms. Perkins, do we have any discretion over setback?
In this case, no. The project, because it does include the second unit, the accessory dwelling unit, and even though that unit is not subject to discretionary review by the commission, because there are 2 units proposed for the project does fall under the Housing Accountability Act requirements from the state. And those limit the city's ability to deny a project that meets all objective standards of the zoning code. So if all of the setbacks, the height, coverages are met, and there's two or more units proposed, which there is in this case, the project cannot be denied.
And we can't require that it be set back further from the street. Is that correct?
Correct.
So we just have to. Even though it's their comment. Would you like to go?
Sure, I think my biggest concern is just, the drainage, it sounds like we have some plans, but, for me, I'd be most interested in seeing just the final plans, just to ensure that it meets, requirements and that what we build on top, does not obstruct, the existing drainage that we have right now, but hopefully just further improves the drainage.
And do you have any thoughts about appearance or?
The setback was an issue, but we just addressed that. Yeah, driveways, I've seen the dual driveways, on both large and small lots. I don't think it's an issue. In fact, I also agree that it actually is, I do like that it is actually an additional safety measure. I don't have an issue with that, but the setback was, an initial concern.
I like the project. I don't think that the setback is a big deal. I think where it sits is okay. It's far enough back from where the curb and gutter is, and it does comfortably fit with the circular or arched horseshoe driveway. I'm confident that people much smarter than I, for sure, will be able to figure out this drainage situation. It happens all the time. It's happened to me on dozens of projects. And there is a solution to how we're gonna get it taken care of. And I think the city and Darrell Johnson are very competent and capable people, and they'll get the reports that they think are gonna be required to make sure they're assured of it as well. And I think it's significant because the other people, yeah, I have some concern that we maybe make sure that the arborist on any tree trimming at any time whatsoever, that an arborist is on site as relates to that oak tree. That is, that's maybe only about 8 feet from the property line, and it's a gorgeous tree. It does have some dead wood in it. That could be taken care of, and it might, you know, they're getting a lot of weight out, far out on the limbs, but oak trees are durable. So I would vote favorably to move this on to the city council for their review, and I think it's a good addition, consistent with everything else on Vineland, the other things on Caven Lane, the things on Blanchard that have been built recently, and consistent with the things at the end of Vineland on the far end, where Palos Verdes comes along. There's all kinds of consistencies with how they've set this house on the lot. I like it.
I have seen this style house come up a lot lately. This one won't go to city council, right?
Correct, I was just gonna, offer that clarification, the decision of the commission tonight will be final unless the project is appealed to the
But we
city.
don't have any variances or anything. Can you pull up the facade of the house on the screen? Is that difficult to do?
Page 16.
Yeah. That's the street view, right?
The last sheet,
That's
What's
the back, that's the back.
the last sheet is better. The last sheet, that one,
There we go.
because that shows you more representative.
No, this is the back,
That's
right?
the front, that's the front and
top.
back. The front's the garage doors and the top,
Yeah.
that's the front.
The top two are the front and the bottom one is the back.
So it will be a big presence. You know, people want the most living space they can get, so that's kind of inherent and square footage allowed. I do feel like the home has kind of a busy look because of the numerous windows and grids and the railings. And even, you can't quite see it on the screen, but even the garage has a lot of texture. There's just so many lines this way and that, and, it almost gives a commercial feel. I wondered if there was a way to simplify the look of it a little bit without maybe disrupting the layout.
Well, you normally ask for multiple exterior materials, so we've got stone and stucco.
Which I like the stone.
Right.
Stone's always lovely.
So, you have to remember that it's actually 40 feet from the street, and it's another 10 feet to the second story, so you're 50 feet back from the second story. We're also doing a large amount of screening along the front, and we'll be coming back.
Can you speak to the screening that you,
Yeah,
I guess it's not on yet, but just a general sense.
Page 10.
the site plan, I guess.
Oh, on the sides,
Side of the
are there some at the front too? I can't recall.
Over on the right, if you move to the right there, so you can see, it is our intention, can you move it up a little? Okay. So it is our intention to plant significantly along the front. We also have not identified in this any planting in the public right of way, because I wanted to go over with Diana what we're actually allowed to put in the public right of way, because that's not our property. But we would like to plant additional trees there, because from the street to the property line is 10 feet. And you don't need 10 feet to walk along. we'd like to do some planting in front of that as well. So if you can see the line of the second story, which is shaded back here, we have a significant amount of distance. We also intend to put some taller trees in the center. Because of that ridiculous PG&E, it's not a PG&E pole, but it's a guy pole that is tensioning the real PG&E pole across the other side of the street. I thought it was a PG&E pole, but it's not. So we can plant trees around it. So we can plant trees in that front semicircle. And I honestly think that it's the same setback as many properties on Vineland. And we've articulated the front to bring the first story and second story a 10-foot setback from one to the other. So I think if you were to go to the house again, I think it's appropriate.
Well, what I'm mentioning is not so much the setback, it's when you look at it, the number of little windows and grids and the railings and the lines on the doors and the lines on the garage doors.
So
It's
you're concerned about grids on
it's
the
just
windows?
busy looking. In my opinion, did anyone else have that sense? I mean, it's like
My clients wanted the grids, not busy little grids, but kind of 4 grids on a window or 6 grids on an incredibly large window. And I think that that's appropriate. I don't think it's inappropriate there. And I don't think, in all honesty, you'll see it. It'll be behind a lot of trees.
The trees will be beneficial also for headlights and such, I suppose, living there.
Well, you need it for Caden Lane. We had to
Yeah.
put
That
the
makes a lot.
garage, we put the garage across from Caven Lane because headlights coming down Caven Lane would be shining anywhere else. So we had to move the entry towards the left and the garage towards the right because of Caven Lane headlights. So I think that and a combination of a future fence, which I'll come to you for, trees at the front, which I will define better when I come forward to you with comments about the fence. And I'll work out with Diana what we're allowed to do in the public right of way to try and get a buffer there. But I think it's a pretty tasteful house.
And I think that'll soften that, what I was talking about. Okay, so those are helpful comments, thank you.
Back to that same point, Tony, I have just a question. It didn't appear to me before, but the front door on the home, to the right of the front door, is that the basement that is got light well in it that we're seeing here or not?
Yeah. So it's the stairway down to the basement. So unless I can come up with something clever, I have to put a little railing on it because I've got about a 3-foot drop. If I can reduce that drop to 2 feet, I can eliminate the railing. But Diana's comment was for the light well, you need a railing. Once I establish what grade I can get that down to, I might be able to eliminate it. In any event, I would screen it with plants.
Gotcha. But that's just the stairwell going down.
That's the stairwell on the front going down to the basement, yes.
And on the side also, there's another railing. That's another stairwell going down.
On the side, I have a light well. That's a bedroom.
There's another railing there.
That's a bedroom there, but that's on the side of the house.
The back of the house really has lots of elevations and windows and grids and there's a lot going on.
Well, it may be that during the later design process, I can talk my clients out of some of the grids, but I do think with the large grids as opposed to small grids, it's not inappropriate. I think if it were small grids like you used to have on some of the old Victorians, it would be inappropriate. But if you have large windows with, you know, 4 grids, it's like a double hung with a vertical bar. So I think it's appropriate, but if you made that a condition, we possibly could remove them, but I don't think it's inappropriate here.
How much visibility?
I will tell them it's $15 per grid. So if you add them all up and I tell them they've got to pay an extra X $1,000, they might take them out anyway.
You never know. How much visibility is there to the back of the house from the neighbor? It's hard for me to.
Okay, there's, so none of the neighbors really look at the back of the house. And there is a rear deck off the master, which I don't know how much that's gonna be used, but that really is not visible from anywhere. If you were to stand out on the property and look around, the only house that you really see is the house to the left, where they have a big 2-story,
one above.
2nd-story balcony on the left-hand side. So we want to plant some trees there. And I would just throw one comment out. This is in a valley. This is in a gully. Even if it were 40 feet tall, it would still look modest in comparison with the neighboring homes, which are taller homes on the hills at the side. So if you look at the house on the left, if you're driving down Vineland and you come over the crest from Winchester, as you come over the crest, you're looking at the story pole netting and it's level with you.
Right.
So
I think
you're,
probably most of
I
us
mean,
drove by.
I don't really
Yeah,
see that mass as being a big problem here.
Okay,
If I were doing it on the top of the hill, I would be sheepishly hiding from your comments.
okay, thank you. So what do we think about, so it sounds like there's consensus about putting something in about having an arborist there, right? When the oak is pruned. How do you feel about, maybe it can't be a condition, but a recommendation to the city engineer that we get an additional hydrologic report? How do people feel about putting it in there? I just feel like the issue's really been flagged and I'm not opposed. I mean, I agree there are people that are smarter than I that know the measurements and such, but it's still not completely passing my concerns. And I think Daryl can at least consider whether he thinks an engineer might be helpful, an additional engineer. Okay, and no one has concerns about the trees that are getting removed or anything else that we haven't addressed? Okay, would someone like to make a motion to approve the project or with those caveats, or do you want me to do it, or?
I can make a motion.
Okay.
Let's approve
Thank
the
you.
project and given the consideration that you mentioned.
I'll second that.
And do you have those sufficiently noted, Ms. Perkins?
I do, thank you.
Okay, all right, and may we please have a roll call vote?
Yes, Commissioner Conley,
Yes.
Commissioner Evans,
Yes.
Commissioner Srivastava,
Approved.
Commissioner Tam.
Yeah.
And Chair Zeidler.
Yes. Good luck with your project, motion passes. And we don't have anything else on the agenda tonight, right? Is there anything else that needs to be added, or?
I move to adjourn.
What is it, 8:45, I adjourned the Monte Sereno April 3rd, or excuse me, May 1st. 2025.